Hello, I'm Jothy Rosenberg, the host of Designing Successful Startups, where today's guest is Caity Craver.
You know, when you're getting a mail, from Habitat for Humanity or Heifer, or you're seeing commercials with really sad-looking dogs and Sarah McLachlan singing in the background asking you for $19 a month, or the St. Jude, that is a particular kind of marketing. And those nonprofit direct response marketers and the agency that serve them, they're a tiny but mighty group. If we think just about charitable giving in the United States, it's $500 billion.
Caity has spent nearly 30 years empowering nonprofit organizations through innovative software solutions that blend art, analytics, and artificial intelligence. Her career has been dedicated to amplifying the impact of nonprofits by centralizing marketing success and simplifying the fundraising process. As the founder of DonorTrends, a pioneering analytics company, Caity revolutionized how organizations target donors with precision. Now, with the launch of the Impact Hub, she is bringing together decades of expertise into one comprehensive platform. Caity's goal is to help nonprofits do less better, do more good. And here is Caity. Hi, Caity.
Hey there, how's it going?
Good. Glad to finally have this come together. It's been a little bit of time in the planning.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And for those that are listening, thank them for their time. It's great to see your face.
So, I always like to set context and ask people, where were you originally from and where do you live now?
I am originally from right outside D.C. in Arlington, Virginia. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Northern Virginia area, but that's where I grew up. And the time in 2008, when I started my first business, I moved down from the D.C. area down to Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where I am today. So I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina right now, but originally from D.C.
Okay. So I haven't had a guest on so far who's from the nonprofit space. So that's you've got a first there.
Mm-hmm.
And you did want to start.
You run a nonprofit,
I do.
Yeah, I guess I'm a guest. Yeah,
you've done one, and one of the things you wrote to me about was you learned a lot. We all make quite a number of mistakes when we do these things. There isn't a playbook for exactly how to handle every single possible thing that could come at you.
That's right.
And so I think you're doing a really good thing of trying to think through what are the things that I learned. And I'm sure that if there are things that you learned, then conveying all what you learned to other people could be very beneficial. And you're trying to absorb all this in what you're doing for number two. So
exactly. Yes. Yeah. Like we built and successfully sold an analytics business, which I'm so proud of the team for that. And we exited from that in 2019. And now I'm building another software. So as you said, I'm trying to remember these lessons that I learned. And I feel like today I'll probably be like a therapy session with you as, we're like really deep in development, ready to launch over the next like 4 to 5 weeks. And so it's like, I had to remind myself of some of these lessons learned the first time around.
So you sold the other one,
mm-hmm.
and then you took a break, and then you're starting one now?
Yes. So DonorTrends, and like just kind of back up where my the world that I come from, for the beginning of my career and really the family that I was born into, my parents in the 70s, 80s, 90s had an agency that was focused on helping nonprofit organizations with their direct response strategies and execution. So, when you're getting a mail, from Habitat for Humanity or Heifer, or you're seeing commercials with really sad-looking dogs and Sarah McLachlan singing in the background asking you for $19 a month, or the St. Jude, that is a particular kind of marketing. And those nonprofit direct response marketers and the agency that serve them, they're a tiny but mighty group. If we think just about charitable giving in the United States, it's $500 billion. $567 billion is generated from charitable gifts. About 70% of that is coming from individual giving in the United States. To motivate not only individuals to give, but corporations and foundations, all of that takes a really serious marketing machine to persuade and motivate people to give. And that is done. We don't usually think about that in the world of marketing. We think about big, commercial, now digital marketing and kind of global brands. But someone like a Habitat for Humanity or a Red Cross or a St. Jude, they're raising hundreds of millions of dollars and doing incredible things for people and animals and the planet everywhere, and your organization does incredible things. So in that space, because budgets are really, really tight, resources are very tight, even though there's so much demand, there's more and more things that need mission towards them. Raising that money is really challenging. And so the first company that we built, called DonorTrends, used predictive science to look at the transactional behavior of a donor. So you gave to Habitat for Humanity this year, and you've given 2 gifts in the past. How likely are you to give again? And what will that gift be? So we applied predictive intelligence to help fundraisers manage their marketing and list selections more efficiently. So instead of mailing $500,000, if we can mail 300,000, we save a lot of money and get the same results. So DonorTrends was an analytics business that helped nonprofits target their files more efficiently. And we sold that in 2019. And then I had an employment agreement with the company, and our intelligence got merged into a CRM, which is so exciting to have it part of a software solution. And then now I'm back at it, where my goal with the Impact Hub is to fuse the art of marketing with the science of marketing. And we can talk about that more, but certainly building DonorTrends, the first company, I learned a lot, which I'm trying to apply to this next solution.
And you've mentioned that you're in the process, you and your team are in the process of developing this new software. How involved are you in that? Are you the designer of it? Are you doing some of the implementation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this time around, I am a solo bootstrapped founder. So in DonorTrends, I had an incredible partner, Ben Miller, who is the company that bought ours, and then it became merged with another big merger thing. He's the SVP of analytics over at the big company still. So he's still working for that company. This time around, I'm just on my own. So it's just me right now. And then the developers, I've outsourced the development. So I don't have like a CTO who's like in this with me. So it's just me right now.
Have you outsourced to a team that you can interact with pretty easily, or are they halfway around the world?
No, that's a great question. So the way that I went about doing in fact, the Impact Hub is it was originally called Creative Keeper, then Marketing Manager. So we're now on the third and kind of final name for now. But the way I had an idea just to talk a little bit about what marketers have to go through, and specifically in this kind of nonprofit fundraising space, we think about marketing. There's more and more marketing. There's more and more channels. When I first started this business, there was mail, phone, face-to-face. Then there's the internet came to be a thing. So now we have all this digital content and podcasts. So there's tons more channels than there used to be. Content is almost developed hourly these days. And the way that all of that gets connected together is chaotic. So we have file storage systems where our imagery and our PDF sent. We have analytics sitting somewhere else. We have, in the market that I'm building for, because a lot of them use a SharePoint, certain people can't access files certain ways. So it's a chaotic environment for marketers, and the goal is to bring everything into one place instead of using more and more software solutions. Let's keep our files together in a way that we're using AI to visually search those images and extract whatever we're looking for. So if you need to find a green envelope, through AI visual search, you'll be able to look at all of your different content and find your green envelopes. When you're going to try to find a case study to respond to an RFP, everything will be organized in a way where you can share it and where we're bringing the data, the outcomes of your marketing into view. So right now, if you're sending out a marketing campaign and you want to show your boss or your board how well this campaign is doing for the organization, you have to go to each individual PDF of artwork, take a thumbnail of that, drop it onto a slide, go to somebody else who has the outcome or data of the campaign, find that, paste it somewhere else. So it's tens, if not hundreds of hours of just manually piecing together the marketing story, and the Impact Hub brings all of that together.
I think we all use that in just our daily lives, not just when you're doing, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'm searching on our Dropbox for, where did we put this?
Right.
And what was it called?
What was it called? And so much of what agencies are hired to do is just for that institutional knowledge, because turnovers, and this, I'm just so familiar, my expertise is in the nonprofit and, agency space. So perhaps it's like this in all industries, but turnover is pretty high. People are shifting jobs usually every 2.1 years. And so it's like the knowledge, it's even file structure. So when we're searching just using keywords or text, within documents, well, as marketers, I want something that has, the goose on it. I want, marketers are looking for different images, to use in different campaigns. And so my kind of mantra with the Impact Hub is do less better. So whatever we can do to minimize, we want to do less better so we can do more good. With these tiny but mighty teams, if we can bring everything into one central location, it just saves them so much time and frustration. So that's my goal here, is just to empower those marketers to do less better so they can do more good.
So it sounds like you're the designer of this new software.
That's correct.
And that you're directing the team. But in order to do that, I mean, and you don't view yourself as a coder. You're not a...
Oh, no, definitely. No, definitely not. And I don't think I answered your asked me about whether it was halfway around the globe or locally. So the way I went about, I had the idea for the Impact Hub, like we need to have the central location for this stuff. I built a prototype first with a development company that I used with the DonorTrends analytics business. And they're mainly in Macedonia. They have team members kind of all around the globe, but they're in Macedonia. And so it's a much, at the time, it was a better price than what we could get. Now pricing for development has kind of stabilized in certain regions. But so I went back to them, and what we did was basically just a clickable kind of Figma file, but along with that, also a requirements document. So here's the bigger idea. Let me take this prototype. And then I went out and I talked to 80 prospective customers. And I've been in this industry for a long time. So I felt so grateful that these contacts that I've had for a long time are willing to like meet on screen and go through this idea. And I got great feedback, as you can imagine. With every conversation, there's going to be, well, if this was here and that was here. But also, sometimes you'll find those common denominators. And that's, after I heard a piece of feedback for the fourth or fifth time, I knew, okay, we have to really think about this and the functionality. I'll give you an example. Early on, it was called Creative Keeper was the first name, which really just sounds like a place where you would put your yarn or something. But the Creative Keeper, I did not want to get into project management because there's, Asana and Monday.com. That project management space is so saturated. The last thing I wanted to do was, kind of try to rebuild an Asana. But it became clear it's in terms of what technology solutions a lot of these marketing teams were just trying to solve for right now was those, workflows and tasks and to-dos across multiple teams and entities. And so while we're not setting out to rebuild a complicated tool like Asana, we did add into, it wasn't there in the original prototype, but in what we're building in the MVP, we do have workflows and tasks and the ability to get content approved through the system, because I learned that during that prototype. So I used the same company, IT Labs, to help build the prototype and write the requirements document. But ultimately, I moved to a different team that's based here in the US. And the main reason I shifted, I was very impressed by their AI knowledge and how they could immediately, even in the MVP stack, integrate some AI tools into MVP in version 1. So, and the timing and the language barrier, sometimes with marketing, as we know, there's phrases and catchphrases, it was a better fit for me. So it started out Macedonia. It is now US based. Short answer.
I just have to stop and commend you for 80 customers is very impressive in anybody doing any kind of product development. You know what I actually say in my book, you ought to try to speak to 40, and I consider 40 to be a lot.
40 is a lot.
And most people have a lot of, and it's really helpful if you have been in an industry and you know a lot of people. And it sounds like you had not a short conversation with each one. You had to show them your mock-up, and then you had to explain how it works and what were the goals. And I bet each conversation was at least an hour.
It was at least an hour. And a lot of it, because COVID has, it was a few years ago. We got acquired, and then 6 months later, COVID hit. So I hadn't really been back kind of on the scene. This is a very small, and maybe a lot of markets are like this, but it's a very niche community. We're tight knit. There's not a ton of us. And so a lot of it too was like reconnecting with people. So I was so grateful for the time, but I also recognize that I'm old. So when you can get 80 people or 40 people to want to jump on screen with you to discuss something, you've been around for a long time. So if there are people joining today's conversation that haven't been, it's like when you've been somewhere for decades, you do have, hopefully you can get that many people on screen, and they were just so gracious with their time. Yeah, some people I went back to, multiple, because I wanted
multiple times.
Yes. And then some, you have to save, because when you think about the rollout strategy, it's like you can't target everybody either, but I wanted to ensure that the features and functionality, I feel like if they had some say-so in how we built the product, then it's certainly a great way for me to go back to them and say, hey, remember when you told me that this would be great to have? We incorporated it, and now it's time to buy it.
Okay, so you've told me that you've got maybe lots more, but you've distilled down the lessons that you feel like you learned from number 1 to a core set of 9 things.
Yes.
And how are you, we can talk about what those are, but how are you trying to use those in what you're doing? Do you read the list every morning and say, okay, I'm not going to do these things, or I am going to do some of the ones that tell me, what I should be doing? What's the deal?
There are some of them, yes. And I'm one of those cheesy quote people, not necessarily the posters with the eagle soaring or anything, but I do have before you walk out the door, I do have check yourself before you wreck yourself. There's certain things that I tell my kids, so one of my lessons from the first to now is just start. Just start. I guess Nike says just do it. So I guess it's not that, I guess I'm stealing from Nike here, but just start.
No. You can, if you have a 2-word thing and you've used one word that they've used, I don't think that's stealing.
They can't.
I didn't think of Nike when I saw that. I just thought, do you have that sign somewhere in your house?
I'll have a Martin Luther King quote that says, you just see the first step and not the whole staircase. And then to me, that's the same thing as just start, so sometimes those quotes but I always think just do it. Sometimes you wait for the best, whatever, I'll come up right now building my new website. I had one up for the Creative Keeper. Now I need to launch the Impact Hub, but I don't want it to be like, here's the features and functionality. You know, I want it to be something better than that. So, but right now, because we're launching in 5 weeks, like just start, just get it up, stop, you know, so I like even right today, I have to look at like, so some of it is a list. I do have a list of 9 right here. I'll have, you know, some quotes in the other room, just as constant reminders, because you've done this so many more times than I have. But, you know, it's when you're in the thick of it, sometimes you forget these lessons that you've like learned and that can really help you out where you are today.
I actually feel like I need to read my own book again soon, because I finished writing it back in December of last year. And I feel like when I look in it, it's like, wow, I should read this again.
Read this again, yes. Maybe you should read it to me. Maybe we should have turn the podcast into a weekly, you know, chapter or something, because clearly, like every morning that I sit down, I have this Wonder Woman thing that I push. Sometimes you have to take a stand, you know, so maybe we need a version of you giving like quotes from your book that I can also push every morning and get me straight.
Okay, but just so you know, you are getting a copy of it for being on my podcast.
Thank you very much. And I will buy a copy as well, because I'm sure there's like some great knowledge in there.
Hi, the podcast you are listening to is a companion to my recent book, Tech Startup Toolkit: How to Launch Strong and Exit Big. This is the book I wish I'd had, as I was founding and running 8 startups over 35 years. It's like a memoir of my entrepreneurial journey. I tell the unvarnished truth about what went right, and especially about what went wrong. It's for the founder, the CEO, and wannabe founders of tech and non-tech startups. You can get it from all the usual booksellers and also from the publisher at Manning.com. I hope you like it. It's a true labor of love. Now back to the show. Well, okay, so just start. That one is very self-explanatory.
That was and probably the hardest one for me to do. Just get it, you know, just start. Another important one, and I've highlighted it a few times today, but that you don't need to boil the ocean. You just need to warm the pond. I think the actual saying is a little bit more crass than that, but you just need to warm the pond. And you mean
it's crass and you're supposed to pee in the pond?
Yes. Yeah, pin. Right. Exactly.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's funny. And so I think about that in the way that I look at vertical SaaS development. So I've mentioned like the nonprofit space a number of times. So doesn't have the greatest TAM, the total available market. You know, while there are a lot of registered nonprofits, there's almost 2 million registered nonprofits. Of that population, those that have buying power for a technical solution is, you know, maybe 275,000. But I choose to build tools in this space because I know the market so well that when you're starting to build something out, be the best of something for a specific target. Then once you capture that market, then we can expand out. But so when I think about this, when I'm like, oh my gosh, well, commercial marketers have like so much more budget spend than these nonprofits. What am I doing this again in this space? You know, nonprofits are stuck. It's challenging because once they lock in their budget number for the year, it's not like they have some disposable fund that they can unlimited money somewhere. It's a nonprofit. So their accounting compliance is different than other B2B types of sales. So it's like, I have to remember I'm building in this space for a reason. And the reason is because I know these people really well. It's like, I'm doing this second as like a passion. Like I know this tool is going to help change the way they do business. And so, but I just have to warm the pond. I don't have to boil the ocean.
You know, that's the reason that jumped out at me is because you may have heard of Walden Pond. It was from, Henry David Thoreau wrote about it. It's up here in Concord. It's about 5 miles from my house.
Okay.
And it's where I work out all summer.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But they came out with an article in the Boston Globe earlier this year, and they said they sort of were admonishing people, please stop peeing in Walden Pond.
What?
And it's like, well, it's a big pond, okay? So it's half a mile long, and about a third of a mile wide, and it's 100 feet deep, so a very deep pond. But they can measure so many people are in it, and and it has no inflow or outflow. It's got no streams. So it's like, well, so when you wrote, you just need to warm the pond, I'm thinking, well, no, not this pond, please, no.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know, like, P.S., fish don't read. I don't know. Like, that's funny. Like, wow. Huh.
What's the next one that you've learned?
Yeah, drum roll, please. We're on number 3 of 9. But you are not alone. So maybe that's more just for affirmation, especially this time around for me, because it's I am a solo founder. The last venture I had, my partner, Ben. So leaning on people like you, your incredible podcast, your book, just know that that's reaching people like me that are doing this, somewhat isolated, and knowing that I have these resources that I can tap into. So I appreciate all that you do to put this podcast out and the time that you spent writing your book, because it is helpful for entrepreneurs like me.
Is Ben going to stay over there, or might Ben come back and rejoin you?
I think Ben will probably stay over there. I haven't connected with him in a couple of months, but I think his skill set is so incredible over there. Then maybe I think his dreams are to like retire one day. But I know that he'll always be there if I need like business help, or especially being in that kind of corporate space. He sees a lot of M&A coming and going. I think as the market starts to shift and we build this thing up for exit, I'm hoping he's helpful down the road.
Good.
Yeah.
What does retention over acquisition mean?
So I think especially for, startups where we're so focused on new business, acquiring. Well, and of course we are, because we're trying to, build revenue. I think it's also important. It's also important with the nonprofits that I counsel. Like, I'm always talking about donor retention, holding on to your donors. Same thing when you're building a business, is that, yes, it's important that we acquire more and more, but you have to pay equal attention, if not more, to those existing customers. And that means that welcoming or that onboarding strategy, be thoughtful before you land your first customer, what that journey, I don't love the word journey, but what that journey will look like. And I'm so proud still when I look to the existing book of business that DonorTrends still has. It's some of those agency partners that we landed in the first, 2 months. They're still here since like 2009. So that retention becomes important. And when we exited DonorTrends, retention, obviously, and churn is a big metric that, people are looking at in acquisition. And so we were proud of our retention rate. But it's just a constant reminder when I'm building something, whether it's developing the software or when I'm thinking about launch, it is, how am I going to give those customers the best experience so they'll want to stay after year 1? And because I am solo right now, that means for year 1, I can't really take on more than 10 accounts to ensure that they're getting the best experience and we're getting them into the tool and using the tool again, so they don't leave.
Yeah. And so it's again going to be a SaaS application. Will it be a big installation integration process, or does it have a lighter touch?
It depends on, it has a lighter touch. I really will have more information after the first year. I want to see how people engage with the tool. Because this integrates file storage, with analytics, there's a lot of different users that kind of plug into the same campaign or the same project. So we'll see, but the goal is that on the enterprise level, for the first year, I'll give away the service for free, but the contracts will be structured where they'll be paying a cloud-based fee and then also a service fee. That service fee for initial customers will be zeroed out, but I imagine, kind of a $2,500 flat service fee to help those enterprise clients onboard and get the system customized in the way that makes sense for their marketing operations. This software takes a level of change management, which isn't easy. And so I won't have, I don't think, a good system set up until I really have 7 to 10 people using it to see how they're interacting it and how we need to improve onboarding in years 2.
When you launch the product, will you hire some people to help that will be helping the customers acquire the product and get it working?
Yes. In fact, in my projections, I changed. Initially, I had sales coming in as the first person. Was the first hire I would make would be sales, but I changed that to customer success for this very reason. Retention over acquisition. I know that I need somebody to come in, not only know the system to help back in with testing, but to ensure that those accounts are running as smoothly as possible, and then to start bringing in another customer success in years. I think I have them right now, like 2 years, 7 months for a second customer success person. But obviously, all of that ties into the pricing. That level of handholding, you're not selling a product that's $100 a month, right? So this type of solution needs to be priced. And again, we're talking about nonprofits, so it's one thing if it's $99 a month, but a lot of heuristics come into play when you're talking a couple grand per month, because if it's $2,500 a month, they haven't baked that in to their current fiscal year budget. But with that level of service and handholding, like pricing obviously needs to match that human interaction. Mm-hmm.
Your next one is near and dear to my heart because it's the part that says build what they need, not what you think they want.
Right.
Because it is so common for a good engineering team to say, well, I know they're going to need this, and one of the things that I always try to get people to do is say, you don't need to architect this for the 20-year time frame. You just need to make sure that it's got what they need, and have confidence in yourself that you can refactor it as we want to add features and capabilities. But otherwise, you're spending money on something that they're not going to use, and then you've wasted it.
Right.
Time and money.
And I think right now, if my development team was like back here, they'd be like, amen. Keep telling, because I think that we're at that point in development where I know what they want to be saying is like, we don't need that right now. And in my mind, because I've already like painted this like grand vision of what this thing should be right now, so it's meeting those expectations, so I'm sure I'm driving the team insane right now. So hopefully once they listen to this, we'll already be past all that stuff. We'll see. But that's I'm trying to remind myself, this is like a lesson that I'm currently in right now. And I'm trying to remind myself of this every day.
What's number 6?
Set your systems up to sell, and not and what I meant, instead of sell, maybe exit is a better word. So it's not necessarily selling the product, but I learned a lot when we sold DonorTrends, and part of that is like simple like admin housekeeping stuff. I'm very fortunate to have had a business partner, like the way that we kept from the very beginning contracts and NDAs and all of our accounting, like we were very thorough with how we kept things. But I know I've talked to people that have sold where they've lost a lot of money because these records were not kept. So it's learning those lessons, especially around contracts and ensuring your books are really tight. That those were important lessons during due diligence. It was myself and Ben, and on the other side for due diligence, like we had just like 32 people alone on the due diligence team from Deloitte. It's like, whoa, like, whoa. It was a lot of like resources. And so going through that due diligence process was intense, I was really proud that we had kept such meticulous records because it helped to facilitate the process. I could imagine if people had to be digging through things and looking for things and who do we work with. It helped that our team was tiny, but that's what I mean.
Man.
Set your systems up to sell or to exit is like I think about that my file system now is like triplicated and the contracts are all saved a certain way. Have you experienced that in any of the exits like that?
Absolutely. And in fact, one of the things in the book that's kind of didactic is actually I go ahead and lay out what a data room for should look like. And I mean, everybody's is going to be a little bit different, but I'm hoping that when they see this one, which has helped with like 11 financings and or acquisition, which are roughly the same kind of due diligence, a major investment from a venture capitalist. So it's kind of the same. And then they might see something that needs to be added, or maybe I have something that they don't need, but at least it's going to get them to think about, this is a pretty significant list. It's like, I think it's like 42 top level folders.
Wow.
I mean,
that's great. Even just seeing what those are is going to be educate so many people. Like, oh, I never thought, I wonder what. That's amazing. I can't wait to get my hands on this book.
Okay, well, we'll fix that.
Yeah.
Okay, so strong team.
Yeah, so build a strong team. I think that's part of life. I don't think that's a big. Not just from selling the business, I learned that, but the team. Again, we were a small team at DonorTrends, but just so dedicated. And it was like the right people around. So I think that it's just a reminder this time. And I feel like for the Impact Hub that I have like been surrounding myself by incredible people, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, you're all by yourself, so you better hope that you're surrounded by the right people.
And I'm here with you. Thank God I'm with you, and hopefully your book soon. I'll be meeting your book.
So that it is a special feeling, and it's unique to a startup. You're not going to see this at a big company that, when all the people you have everybody is trusting each other, everything's clicking, is, fantastic. And yeah, when you have a team within a big company, you can have that. But of course, you still have to interact with the rest of the company, and I've had challenges with that the times that I have worked at a big company. So it's amazing how great things are. And one of the ways I've always gotten there is that I have a rule that we will hire no strangers in the first 25 people.
Oh, I like that.
And that means it's either people that you know and or have worked with before, or somebody else on your team has. And so as you start to add to the team, that the circle that you can include in that no strangers is getting larger. So it's not like they all have to be your, immediate contact.
Right.
But it still is. It's a good philosophy, I think.
Right. And nothing else. Who hired this fool? At least we could just.
Yeah.
No, I love that rule. I love that rule. And then there's some familiarity, and someone's like, I like that a lot. I like that.
You still can make mistakes, and hiring is not a science. It's art.
No, that's what.
And the corollary, or the rule that goes with that, is to hire slowly and fire quickly. The second part of that is the most important.
I can see that, especially like in sales. Right. I think that's so true, and knowing and not keeping people around for too long.
If they're not working out, then they can start to really drag the whole rest of the team down, because like we just said, they're all really trusting each other, and everybody's working, very efficiently and communicating. And then if somebody kind of is the wrench in the cogs of the machine, then and somebody make sure you are aware of that, then it behooves you to do something about it quickly, so that your team isn't.
That down when we start to build out. I think that's another great lesson. I'll put that on my wall. I think that's really smart to be aware of how much time goes by and assessing whether it's a fit or not.
The shorthand for that was that within the team, they would say, the bozo bit has been flipped. And that means that this person is a bozo. And once the switch is flipped, unfortunately they have to go.
Right.
And I don't like, say, oh, well, the hiring manager needs to take care of that. I feel like it's my responsibility to act quickly, to take care of it, to ask that person if they would go ahead and leave, come back on Saturday, get their stuff, and then you rally the team and you say, this is what just happened and here's why. And, now we're all moving forward.
Yeah, that's a great way to handle it.
Okay, so let's talk about embracing failure.
Oh, I think that I've always been, I guess I don't love to fail, but I do think learning from your failures and not being too scared to fail has always been a big part of who I am. Like, since my kids have been little, like, we'll talk about, like, how did you fail today? Which they always would find such a strange, like, why are you promoting this, like, failure? But I do think so much.
That's the first thing you said when I got home from school.
I would talk about how I failed. I would come home and be like, guess who? Like, let's talk about how I failed today. Only to remove so I feel like so much, like, humans are really held back in life by, like, being like, I guess it would be embarrassment. Is what holds us back, because we're just, we're too scared to be embarrassed, and that would be failure. But I think learning from, let's not be too scared to fail. It's again, just start, which was number one. Just start, and then if we do fail, what do we learn, and then turn those into lessons. And I think, like anybody in software, it's like that's kind of what we do, right? We iterate. How did that work? Did that not work? What do customers want? So I think that's an important part of, like, what's in us.
But I also think people in marketing have the same attitude. The idea of you try a campaign and then you measure it and then you say, well, that wasn't as good as I'd thought. I wonder why. And the other thing is that, the cool thing about marketing is you can try 5 different versions of a campaign with 5 different segments of your target population.
Yep.
So that's pretty similar.
Yeah. And pivot when necessary. And you were just talking about this with team members, that if change is needed, let's pivot quickly. Let's not, if something's not working, let's figure it out and keep it moving. Mm-hmm. I think it's,
and at a startup or, any kind of small organization, you can do that pretty quickly. I've watched some big companies where it's like turning an aircraft carrier. It's just like analysis paralysis.
It really is. I was shocked I guess I shouldn't have been, like, shocked, but I guess going from startup environment to after acquisition, there's probably just whole podcasts around just that, kind of that limbo period. How do we fit into this giant machine? And that, we still need to hit numbers and all of this, but watching how something on such large scale is created versus like what our process for our platform was, it's like every decision and getting on the roadmap and all the meeting, it's like, whoa, it's just a totally different way of getting, product developed.
Okay. Last but not least, be prepared for the long haul.
This is true. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? I think
that's right.
Like,
that's another way to say it.
Yeah. And I think that it's just like just being gritty is what I say, 1 foot in front of the other. If we fall down 7 times, whatever that energy is that gets us up the 8th time, that's just keeping that in mind, like just 1 foot in front of the other, and we'll get there eventually. And it's not going to happen overnight. And, sometimes in this process, I'm still very, very, very early on, but even reflecting back of, like, when this used to just be an idea, even thinking about, like, what this idea is going to help marketers do, and so I just remembering, it's like, I know it's like a marathon, and I just left the start, but we'll get there.
Well, you used my favorite word just now. So you're obviously very gritty. And where do you think your grit comes from?
I don't know where it comes from. To me, there's it's like an energy but it starts it starts with a need, a desire, like something to prove, or that I have to fix. There's an energy. And so I don't know where it comes from. All I know is I'm so dedicated to changing something. And I think for everybody that energy, that dedication to wanting something to change becomes a goal, and that grit is the accomplishment of that goal. And so, but I'm not gritty for everything, but I'm so passionate about what this tool can do that I'm willing to, like I said, fall 7 times, and that grit's going to get me up for the 8th time and the 9th time and the 27th time. And so, but it does start with like just that, that notion that I know that there's this problem and I'm going to solve it. What is your definition of grit? Or where do you think it comes from?
Well, for me, it came from, what I had to go through as a kid, having cancer and losing my leg. That just forces you to, or you give in. You just sort of cave in, and you just, but solve a really big problem, and build a company that can deliver on that. That is something that takes grit, and there's some people that are drawn to that.
Yeah, and I applaud those that are doing it. You're right. It does take grit and delusion, maybe. 2 tablespoons insanity, 4 tablespoons grit. Yeah, I'm sure there's a recipe.
How old are your kids?
17 and 18.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're like, big now, which is good.
Yeah.
And they're doing this with me this time, which is fun, so all the new business development, and because this platform has meant, where marketing is stored for almost 2 years, I've signed up for all kinds of marketing. So they're in charge of scanning all the mail packages and organizing them by organization. So they're the Impact Hub interns.
Are they unpaid interns?
Correct. Well, they get Wi-Fi, so
they get Wi-Fi and food.
Right. They get Wi-Fi, food, electricity. I mean, that's in this economy, that's probably like $8,000 a month right there.
All right. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you today.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Designing Successful Startups podcast. Check out the show notes for resources and links. Please follow and rate us at podchaser.com/designing successful startups. Also, please share and like us on your social media channels. This is Jothi Rosenberg saying, TTFN, ta-ta for now.